"So Harris is choosing his mate tonight, my best friend?" Millie asked. I couldn't help but giggle at enthusiasm. "Yes, Millie, I'm so excited. But I still have some nervous." Looking at her excitedly, I patted my chest like I was soothing a baby, trying to calm myself down. "Just relax. I am sure you'll be the happiest one tonight." Millie grabbed my arms to comfort me. "But what if I am not his mate? You know how much I love Harris. I can't imagine I am not the right one for him." I looked at Millie with an uneasy face. "No, you needn't worry about it. You are definitely his future Luna." I didn't know why she was so sure. Maybe she is just trying to give me some relief. "Liberty. Remember though, I love you forever. There is nothing I wouldn't do for you sisters until the end," she said with a sparkle in her eye. I saw a flicker of emotion flash across her face, but it was gone so quickly that I didn't realize what it meant. After my mother passed away when I was 13 years old, the most important persons in my life were my dad and my grandmother Mary. But then I met Harris and Millie. They treated me so well, and they meant a lot to me. I think God really blessed me. I looked at Millie and felt so lucky to have such a good friend, surrounded by love. Millie's eyes sparkled in the moonlight, and a dazzling smile crossed her face that I could sense that she was unsure. I grabbed her arm and looped it around mine, patting it with my hand. "This is where it all begins," I said, smiling back at her. The music already deafening us as we approached, and the entire pack waited outside for our alpha to address us. We stopped in awe as Luna Jenkins walked out of the door, smiling at us all. She was so beautiful I couldn't take my eyes off her as she glided elegantly through the pack. Alpha Jenkins walked the pack as we all parted ways for him. I watched him knowing even though I dated his son for 3 years he never liked me. I don't know why, but it's okay for me if only Harris liked me. I wondered if that look on his face was despair that I would be his son's mate. As he stood, he watched us all and waved his hands. "Tonight, my pack, we will celebrate as our son Harris finds his mate among you all," he said as we all relaxed and watched. His smile not quite reaching his eyes, but his words sent goosebumps over my skin. Harris walked through next, and my stomach clenched excited by seeing my man facing us all. Mill bound by fate my hand tight and stroked it with her thumb. "It is okay," she whispered. I thought she just wanted me not to be so nervous. I would never understand what happened next, how I missed it in a blink of an eye. Harris was storming through the crowd towards us, his wolf pushing forward, and a shiver ran up my spine and excitement coursed my veins. He charged like an animal that was possessed, and I was ready for him. I stood and opened my arms to welcome him to me. His eyes met mine, but there was something in them I'd never seen before. And the glimmer of recognition flashed in his eyes, but then his eyes darted from me and rested upon Mill. She looked face down to the ground and hadn't realized Harris knelt beside her. And when she did, she was shocked. "We talked about this before, Harris. You need to choose liberty. Why you do this now? I am sorry. I just can't resist my magnetic pull for you. I really can't help myself." Harris gasped in pain. I watched in horror as my boyfriend cupped my best friend's face and raised it to him. Their eyes met and sparkled to one another. I just realized that Millie was already 18 last month. So she already knew Harris was her mate. "Mate," Harris said, and Millie's eyes sparkled, and she went to speak as I screamed out, "No!" Harris' growl rumbled through him so loud that the pack members stood back. My eyes glistened with the hurt and betrayal I felt inside. Millie wanted to reach out to me, to explain it all. I couldn't help but step back as she stood. The hunger he felt for her was evident in her eyes. How did I not see it before? All those times being together and around each other. I didn't question her closeness with him because she was my best friend. "Liberty." She spoke softly to me. "I didn't expect this. I never want to hurt you." I could feel all the eyes of the pack burn into us as Millie stepped towards me. "I'm sorry, Liberty," she spoke. She was elegant and graceful, and in that moment everything I was not. I shook my head as tears rolled down my cheek. You could have said, I spat. I tried, but every time I want to say it, I am afraid of hurting you. I know how you love Harris. I am afraid I am going to lose you. I told him to choose you as his mate, but I didn't expect that he didn't do that, she said, and touched my hand. I pulled my hand from her. I shook my head in disbelief. Really, if you tell me the truth, I will accept fate, because you and him are so important in my life. But see what have you done? I am hurting even more now. Do you really think lying to me with Harris, making me think that I am his mate, would make me happy? I am not a love beggar or something, waiting for you to give me handouts. So why don't you stop being so pretentious here? You're a traitor, Liberty. Stop. Don't put those harsh words on her. Harris stepped to Millie's side, as if I was the one who should leave at his mating ritual. You think I am too harsh on her, huh? What about me? Aren't you two being too harsh on me? My dream was to be your mate, but now it's just like a joke. Turns out I've been occupying my best friend's mate. Huh, now you are defending her to me, shouting to me like I am just nobody. We've been dating for 3 years, Harris. Suddenly, you are acting like it means nothing to you. I screamed hysterically at him. There is a guilty flashed in his eyes. I can't resist my fate from the moon goddess. Just let us accept it, Liberty. Stop being irrational. His words stabbed me like a sharp knife, and I felt my world collapse. I didn't understand why this man was so cruel to me. I didn't even know if he ever really loved me or not. In the end, I was the only one dreaming of spending the rest of my life with him. Millie's eyes reflected her fear and panic as she tried to explain to me again. I could see her face was pale, looked precariously fragile. But when I saw Harris take her hand, once again anger took over my sanity. I raised my hand to overwhelmed Miller, but Harris stopped me by grabbing my hand. I looked into his eyes, and there was no trace of love or guilty, only full of anger. He squeezed my arm so hard that it seemed that he wanted to crush my bones. Without giving me time to react, Harris looked at me with a cold glare, his aura pushing me back until I stumbled. I looked at Harris in disbelief. He took a deep breath and said, I am sorry, Liberty. I just want you to calm down. Miller is the mate that Moon Goddess arranged for me. Like it or not, we can only accept that. Please, watch me finish this mate ritual in silence or leave. What? Did he just overwhelmed me? I can feel how burning pain on my face. I came to my senses, anger swept through my head. I immediately raised my hand and taking the full force of my hatred I had for Harris in that one strike. How dare he? I was so angry that I didn't notice Luna coming over and trying to stop me from hurting her son. When I realized that my stumbled was about to land on her face instead of Harris's, I couldn't take it back. I saw her stagger back and the gasps from all around still rang in my ears. I didn't know how to react. Oh, so overwhelmed. What have I done? Chapter 1 has come to a close. Please stay with us as we read through the rest of this story. If you are watching, please give us a like and leave a comment telling us where you are tuning in from. Now, let's continue listening. As Luna held her face, she waved the pack back. She tried to reach for me. But my heart was racing, pounding through my chest. I could feel the beads of despair roll down my face. No! I shouted, stumbling her hand from me. I stared at Harris. My heart shattered into pieces. I curse you both to live a miserable life. I spat, as I felt the alpha make his way through the pack to see what was going on. The Luna tried her hardest to grab my hand, to calm me down, but I was already too deep. My emotions had already pushed me to the bounds of no return, so I did what any sane individual would do when their boyfriend and best mate hooked up in front of you. I pushed Luna so hard that she overwhelmed the floor, holding her stomach with both hands. She couldn't move, and suddenly the immense fear and guilt swept over me. Luna. I was just about to come up to check her when I heard Alpha Jenkins growl. I was so startled. With the tears now rolling down my face, I turned around and ran away. My wolf pushed forward and took control as she could feel the darkness that filled me as I ran. She felt weakness ebb at my soul as I struggled to keep it together. I got you, Carissa, my wolf said as I shifted. I don't remember much as Carissa took control and I sunk deep into despair at the betrayal from the people I loved. The only thing I could remember is the endless running. I woke the next day with the sounds of the birds bleary-eyed. I forgot for a moment what had happened to me the night before, what had sunk me so low that I woke naked in the forest that surrounded the borders of my pack. I pulled myself to my feet, and I knew then, as the heavy weight of realization smashed into me, that the people I loved most were together. And meant I had no place in their life anymore. The embarrassment coursed through me, and I no longer wanted to be a part of this pack. I didn't want to return to all those stares. Don't overthink it. It won't be that bad, Carissa said. I could feel her awaken, and a wave of calm filled my body. Stop that! I snapped at her. I could hear her whimper at the tone of my voice, and she said, Liberty. What was meant to be was already written by the moon goddess that you could not have known. Her words cut me. Anger erupted through me again, and I screamed in frustration. It is totally the bull's overwhelmed fate by the moon goddess. I believed in fate so much before, but look at what I've got. I would never worship it again. Carissa tried to comfort me again, but I shoved her back, wanting my mind quiet to think. My wolf whimpered at being locked away from me. I wanted the pain I felt, the heartache that coursed through me. I had no idea what my plans were. Suddenly I heard rustling behind me. I knew people were coming and I didn't want to be found just yet. Carissa tried to push forward, but I pushed her back. No, I said with certainty. I looked up into the tree and started to climb so I was out of sight, but could hear their chatter. Once we find her, we will take her back to the Alpha, one man said. I thought then that they were talking about me, and I listened intently as the two men came into view. These were men of our pack, Hawkins, and Thompson. They clearly meant our Alpha. Hawkins, if we find that defiant soul, how would Alpha Jenkins treat her? Will she be evicted from our pack? Thompson asked. Are you an idiot? Our Alpha hasn't liked her for so many years, and now she hurt our Luna. Luna is still unconscious. I don't think Alpha will show her mercy. Maybe he will ending the legacy her. Hawkins spat at Thompson. I felt a chill in my heart. But she's the daughter of our Beta Astro. Thompson was very surprised. Beta? He's just the previous Beta in the future. Who knows? I frowned at what they had said. What will happen to my father after what I did yesterday? Well, I think it is a bit extreme. I know that she caused a scene, but we all saw the heartbreak on her face. Actually, it's not her fault. Why does she need to be punished for that? Thompson asked. With a swift movement, Hawkins knocked Thompson to the ground. He wrapped his hand around his throat and bared his canines, and with a growl he said, Don't question our Alpha, Thompson. The girl embarrassed his son. He has no place in this pack for her. We do as we are told. Do you understand? Thompson, who was now gasping for air, nodded vigorously, and as Hawkins pushed him back, letting his grip go, I could hear Thompson gasping for air and rubbing his throat. I am sorry, he whimpered. My hands covered my mouth as I gasped. A shiver ran up my spine as I filled with fear, and I knew it wouldn't be long before my fear presenced the entire area, and they would sniff me out. Carissa challenged forward, filling my body with calm to mask the fear I was feeling. Liberty, calm yourself, she whispered. The men started to walk away from the tree, and only then could I let out the breath. I didn't realize I was holding. What do I do? I asked Carissa. With that, I could feel my father try to reach me through a mind link, and sighed knowing this may be the last time I speak with him. Liberty. Are you okay? Are you safe? His voice rushes through as I open the link. Dad? I'm okay, I reply. There was a silence before he said, Run, Liberty. Run. I will find you, but it's not safe here. Don't talk to the pack, just run. I could feel the pain break in his voice. Why? I said as tears filled my eyes. Because you smacked Luna, Liberty. You know this is very serious, he said with emotion. I wiped the tear that was on my cheek. Dad, I didn't mean to, I whispered. I know, my darling Liberty. But it was an embarrassment, and even though Alpha Jenkins doesn't know, I know. But he is out to find you and punish you for the act, he said. I must go, Liberty. You must run. I have kept the search away from the north border. Once you leave, renounce the Alpha and the bond will be cut. It will hurt, Liberty, and you will then be a rogue. You need to do that to be safe. Head to the cabin I took you to as a child. I'll meet you there, he said. With that, he ended the mind link and left me on my own. What if I spoke to Harris? He will help me, right? I said to Carissa. I could sense her fear of going rogue, but her fear of staying was deeper. You know, it's a wrong choice. Just follow what Beta Astro says, she said shockily. I nod knowing that it was my only choice. I climb down from the tree using all my senses to avoid the pack. As I start to run through the woods, I hear the chatter of the men suddenly stop. I know they could hear me and may even smell me, but I knew I had no time now. I knew once I was across the border, I would be safe. She's over there, Marcus shouted, as I heard them all run towards me. Run, Carissa shouted. My small body shaked, and the adrenaline shot through me, as I could feel Carissa push forward and push the shift so she could run faster than me. 12 men were chasing me in wolf form, baring their canines and growling at me. The only thing I can do is running. I can't let them catch me. I knew that they were stronger than me, and my wolf, and as I pushed my feet to go faster, it felt slow-paced compared to them. Marcus was the first to get close to me, as he pounced to push me down. Carissa, though, dodged him and managed to scramble away. I for now was a spectator in this chase, as Carissa bared her teeth and growled at Marcus. But as he tried to jump on us again, his claws scraped into my side as Carissa dodged him, and he crashed into the ground. I heard Carissa whimper, but she didn't stop. She moved so fast that we could now see the border, and we both knew that as soon as we were through the trees, we were free, our heart pounding as we surged forward. We suddenly realized the pack had stopped chasing, and as we turned our head we saw them bow and bare their necks. We knew Alpha Jenkins was here. Our heart hammered in our chest as we turned to keep running forward, but suddenly overwhelmed by a rush of aura that coated us, and Carissa fell to her knees, whimpering. She tried to fight the command, but his aura was too strong, and she had no choice but to bare her neck too. I could feel her pain that the aura had on her, and I knew that we were lost to it. Bring the Beta Astro, Alpha Jenkins ordered. Tears flooded me as I realized they knew my dad had tried to help me. As a Beta that went against his Alpha orders, the punishment was death. No. I screamed, but it was barely audible as the Alpha aura was still commanding us. My father stood there, weakened by heavy ancient chains that suppressed his spirit. He looked weary, the light in his eyes fading as he endured the Alpha's harsh judgment. The wolfsbane would have weakened his wolf, preventing him from healing. I tried to move forward and comfort my father, but the Alpha's aura was strong and my body couldn't move. I watched as they pushed him to the ground, and the pain I felt bound by fate me, pulling my already shattered heart into the pit of my stomach. In that moment, all I felt was hate towards our Alpha, towards our pack that allowed this to happen. I knew I couldn't stop it. I wasn't strong like they were. Dad, I whispered. A smile crossed his face, and he whispered, Liberty, stop, Alpha commanded. The pack looked on helplessly, not moving as the aura washed over to them. Alpha Jenkins placed his foot on my father's chest, and I could hear his breathing become labored, and I winced at his pain. Suddenly, the crowd parted, and I saw my grandmother. My grandmother was highly respected in our pack. She's a human being, but she insisted on training herself as a warrior after my grandfather and his wolf had chosen her as a mate. I believe it was Grandma's persistence and bravery that made her who she is. So when the war happened with the Dracos pack, she refused to listen to pleas to stay inside. She walked on that battleground and fought to protect her home. She was awarded the highest honor within the pack for her bravery and a well-respected member of our pack. She stumbled and ran towards me, her eyes full of tears. I felt an unbearable pain. At her age, she should be enjoying her last days, but look at now. She was shedding tears for me and worrying about my overwhelmed things. She hugged me tightly, and I just couldn't stop my damn tears. Don't worry. I won't let anyone hurt you. Grandma was unaffected by the aura that the Alpha commanded. She wasn't in any fear at all. She walked straight to the Alpha, and it was clear that the Alpha was pissed off with her. Yet he did not command her to obey. He just narrowed his eyes at Mary and said, "You shouldn't come to here. You hunt and torture my family. How can I leave it alone? Beta Astro has always been faithful and true to you. Why would you do this to him?" she asked. Beta Astro went against my command and tried to help his daughter escape. "You should know what consequences he will get for rebellion against me," he said through gritted teeth. "Can you blame him? She is his only daughter. He lost his mate, my daughter, in the war you had with the Dracos pack. He fought by your side even though when his mate died, the link between them made him crash to the ground and the pain he felt ripped through his body. He fought to protect you, his Alpha. He lost everything that day but her," she said with confidence, pointing at me. The Alpha looked at my father, and then at me, and a flicker of doubt crossed his face momentarily before it vanished. "Alpha, you are almighty, no one here disagrees. But this is barbaric. He is the best beta you have ever had. What he did wasn't questioning that. He was acting as a father. Do you honestly think he would allow your pack to beat him and chain him in Wolfsbane if he wasn't just trying to buy her time?" Mary said. Her voice still soothed me, and my sobs started to subside. I questioned her ability to actually change the Alpha's mind and save my father. The realization that my father was only this battered and bruised was because he was trying to save me and had overwhelmed me so hard that I felt numb from the waves of pain that fled over my body. What she did was act on the emotions she felt, but what Harris did to her was much worse. "You know, Liberty didn't mean to hurt Luna," she said. And her emotions of guilt and regret overwhelmed me of not seeing it, and protecting me overwhelmed me hard and made my heart ache. The Alpha moved his foot off the beta and looked down to where I was, and his sorrow glazed his eyes as he understood finally what his son had done to me. "Remove the chains from Beta Astro," he commanded. As Thompson stepped forward nervously, he glanced at me with a look of regret in his eyes. As my father rolled on the floor, gasping for the much-needed air, I realized the aura of the Alpha had been released, and I surged forward, grabbing my father and wrapped my arms around him, protecting him from the pack. "Liberty," Nanny Mary said, kneeling down beside me. I wiped my tears away, and as my puffy eyes met hers, I could only say one word: "Thank you." Mary nodded and stood to face the Alpha. "Thank you, Alpha, you are truly great," she said, and then knelt and bared her neck. The Alpha tutted at this display, and through gritted teeth he said, "Stand." The Alpha glanced at me and then back to Mary. "She must pay. I will show mercy to Beta Astro and allow him to stay, but I will strip his title of Beta. However, this little evil wolf cannot go unpunished for what she did to my mate. She can't be the part of us. She can't stay in our pack anymore, and you can choose," Alpha Jenkins said. "You prefer that she die here today or at my hands tomorrow, hmm?" Gasps from the pack were deafening. I realized I was in trouble, that my father would live, but he would lose me either at the hands of Alpha Jenkins or his son Harris. Nana had only managed to save my father and not myself. The growl that escaped me shocked myself more than it did Nana. Nana turned towards me and winked at me, a motion unnoticed by the Alpha and the pack. We know Alpha Jenkins too well. Don't worry. She has a plan, whispered Carissa. The doubt in her words crossed my mind, but I had no choice but to hope she had thought of this. The pack bowed once again as Luna Jenkins and Millie walked through the crowd towards us. Millie darted her stare between myself and Nana. I could see the mark on her neck meant that they had already mated, and the bond between them was unbreakable. Luna, why are you here? Alpha said with devotion. It was evident that he would move mountains for his Luna, that the love they shared shone brightly. It was said years ago she used to be a rogue herself, and that the Alpha had found her in a trap and healed her and brought her back. Harris loved the love they had between them, and would tell their love story often. Jenkins, you are punishing a girl to death in our pack, she said with a harshness that scratched at your soul. My father started to move in my arms. I knew his wolf was getting stronger and trying to heal him. Luna, this evil wolf hurt you. I definitely won't show her mercy. The Alpha snapped back. I heard Millie suddenly scream rogues. Everyone instantly turned to where Millie was screaming and pointing. The commotion had distracted the pack enough for Thompson to yank me from my father. He wrapped his hand over my mouth to stop me from screaming. The entire pack was in a tumult of fear, scouring the borderline for these rogues that Millie saw, so Thompson pulled me away. He led me into a house as fast as he could. No one noticed us. Then a car pulled up outside the building, and you could hear footsteps on the gravel. Thompson grabbed my arms, and with a fierce look he demanded, "Renounce the Alpha." Shock at his words filled me, and must have shown on my face as he shocked me. "We don't have time." "Renounce him," he hissed. "I renounce Alpha Jenkins and his pack. I renounce Alpha Jenkins." As the words left my lips, I could feel the tearing within me, as the bond to my pack broke. My head was pounding, and my heart beat fast. My body shook as I could feel I no longer belonged. I crumpled to the floor, and Thompson scooped me up in his arms. The knock on the door was frantic, and as Thompson opened the door, my eyes went black, and the surroundings blurred out as a stranger's set of arms wrapped around me, pulling me from Thompson's body before I fell into the abyss. "What is that smell?" Carissa asked, as I lay with my eyes closed. I grunted at her, and tried to turn as I slept. "Liberty, wake up!" Carissa shouted at me. "How long have I been asleep?" I asked, rubbing my eyes. As I lifted my hands, I could feel the heavy chains that were tied around them. I suddenly realized I was not at home in my bed, and in fact, I didn't know where I was. I could hear Carissa growl in my head as I took in the cold, damp room. The window had bars on it that only let in a little light. The walls were bare and stone, and there was no furniture in here. I was confined by duty. I cursed myself for trusting Thompson and renouncing my Alpha. I licked my dry lips. I was so thirsty, but there was nothing in here. I was chained to the stone wall and laid on a mattress on the floor, like a wild animal. I didn't recognize my surroundings at all, and I searched for any links between my father and I, but there was nothing. I sat here with only Carissa to keep me from going mad. "At least we aren't dead," Carissa said positively. "Could you focus?" I spat. As Carissa and I quarreled within my mind, we froze at the sound of the locks on the door being undone, and as we shuffled back into the wall, fear presencing around us, the door flew open. In walked a tall man with dark hair and chiseled features to his cold, stony face. He was clearly muscular under his shirt as it clung to each part of him. He set a tray down beside us. My stomach grumbled at the delightful smell that came from the food. I looked down and saw a piping hot bowl of soup and some bread next to it with a glass of water. He just looked at me with the deepest blue eyes that were as cold as ice. The stare he gave me made me quite uncomfortable, that I could not help but look at the floor. "Eat," he simply said. How when I am chained to this wall? I whispered. He wasn't expecting that as my first question, as he simply glanced at my hands and then back at me. Would you not rather ask why you were chained to the wall? He questioned. I assumed it was Alpha Jenkins that chained me up, so I didn't question why. Though I thought I knew everyone in the pack. But this guy was something else. I had never seen him before. No, I assume Alpha Jenkins ordered it. I said matter of fact. I couldn't feel my pack since I had renounced them. I assumed that is why I couldn't feel this man before me. Something flickered in his eyes as if I had touched a nerve, and he furrowed his brows at me and hissed. You are no longer part of the Jenkins pack. His words still struck a shiver up my spine and goosebumps over my skin. But I knew what he spoke was true. So I simply nodded. My calmness was created through the numbness of all the pain I had felt. I no longer cared if I was locked up or where I was. I simply felt empty and lost within. How could this man understand that? His aura was great as I shivered with him so close. I could sense the anger pulsating under his muscles, and I simply assumed it was because I renounced my pack. Eat, he said, leaning into me to reach for the chains. His presence overwhelmed me. It was different from the rest of the pack. It didn't smell anything like our pack, and I frowned. He loosened them enough so that I could eat comfortably. He watched as I ate, saying nothing to me but his look of disgust as I devoured the bread, and soup was evident on his face. As I put the spoon in the bowl, he instantly took the tray away, and without saying a word, he walked out the door. His aura had unsettled me. I didn't mind that he left as he made me uncomfortable just watching me in silence. Where are we? This doesn't smell like home, Carissa said. I ignored her at first, but her endless chatter got on my nerves. Shut up, I snapped. Look, I know you are still feeling the pain from today, but I don't think we are safe yet. I need you to snap out of this, she said. I shook my head. I don't care. I don't even know if my father is alive, I said. Just then, the locks on the door moved again. The door flew open, and I rolled my eyes half expecting that cold, uncomfortable man to walk through the door. Though this time it was Millie. Carissa growled at the sight of her, and it rumbled through my chest. Millie was taken aback by the hostility that Carissa showed her. Tell your wolf to pipe down, I come to help you, she said. I glanced at the chains on my wrists, and then back at Millie. Oh, really? You are so nice, thanks, I said as I rolled my eyes. Liberty, I need to talk with you. I need you to listen, Millie said as she sat on the floor opposite me. It's not like I can run away. Is it Millie? I snapped at her. Look, I didn't know Harris was my mate for sure until the day of the ceremony. I felt it. I wasn't sure before. When I realized that, I wanted to reject him, and I told him choose you as his mate. But now, looks like all things are going to wrong way. As she spoke, she frustratedly ran her hands through her hair. You were my best friend, Millie, and Harris is my love. You could have said before the mating ritual so that I have time to accept it. All of a sudden, I was told that my love isn't mine, but yours. And you wanted Harris to cheat me and express that I was his mate. How can I accept that? You made me so embarrassing, and Harris also showed no respect to me. Now look, because I lost my temper, Alpha Jenkins has locked me in this place. Probably to torment me, and then ending the legacy me as I hurt his mate, the Pax Luna. Is this the result you want? I said as tears stung my eyes. As Millie went to talk, I cut her off by snapping at her. Is my father even alive? Will the Alpha's new beta come here to beat me in front of the old one? Do you understand the pain I felt? The pain I feel? I said as the tears rolled down my face. Millie shifted uncomfortably, and I realized she wasn't telling me something. What? I demanded. I saw her flinch, then she anxiously played with her hands. You're not in the Jenkins pack anymore, she said. A nervous laugh escaped me. Why was everyone saying that as if I didn't know? Yes, Millie, I know. I still feel the pain from when I renounced the pack in my heart. I spat. First, that man now, Millie, seriously didn't think highly of my IQ. No, Liberty, you misunderstand me. You are not in the Jenkins pack anymore. Thompson, Mary and I got you out, she whispered. I listened to her words and the cold air blew through me. If I wasn't in the Jenkins pack then, where was I? I looked around the room and back at Millie. Where am I? I whispered. Liberty, don't freak. It was the only pack that we could find you refuge in. Millie started to speak. I pulled at my chains, shaking them, so the noise echoed around the room. Refuge? This is a refuge? I screamed. Calm down, Lib. Millie said. Calm down. Are you joking? I laughed. Lib, Harris made the effort you couldn't imagine to protect you. This pack won't hurt you. Alpha Jenkins won't come here. He will think you are dead anyways because of the bond broken. Mill started to ramble on. I realized then where she had bought me. I could feel the color drain from me. My head started to spin. Tell me it is not true, Millie. Tell me I am not in the Dracos pack, I whispered, anger surging through my veins. Tell me it isn't true, I screamed. Millie's eyes glistened, and she couldn't help but let a tear slip out. She wiped it away and she nodded. The grief overwhelmed me like a wave. My hands trembled. I couldn't believe I was here. Millie, why? I stuttered. Lib, please, this was the only place that would give you refuge. The Alpha has changed since the old one. This one. She started to say. I am astonished by her ignorance. The new Alpha is no different to the last. He is the same essence line, which means he is as merciless as the last one. I said matter-of-factly. I sighed. Knowing they had sealed my fate with this pack, there was nothing I could do than take the torture that headed my way. Your father is alive. He has had his title stripped, but he is alive. Jenkins doesn't know we helped you. I can't visit for a while. I just needed to let you know, Millie said quietly. I glanced from Millie then to the door. We wanted to let you know you were safe, Thompson said, walking and leaning against the door. His whole being repulsed me, and I shuddered at his voice. Carissa couldn't help but lunge forward, taking control and showing her canines. The chains kept me in place, and Carissa retreated back into my mind. We have to go, Thompson said as he held his hand out to Millie. Millie looked like she was going to say something, but didn't. She dropped her head and followed Thompson out of the door. You gave me to the pack that ending the legacied my mother. I will never forgive you, I said, as the tears flowed freely. Days had gone past and nothing had changed. The man with no name had visited me several times to give me food and water, and each time he watched without saying a word. I also don't want to have a chat with him, because I thought he's also the one of Draco's pack. Today was different, though. A load of ladies flooded into the room and surrounded me. One of the ladies knelt down beside me, and she smiled. I could see her smile reach her eyes, and they shone brightly. My name is Jess. I have been asked to come here and get you ready, she said, reaching out to stroke my face. I had no strength to argue, but I couldn't help feeling wary of her words. Ready for what? I asked in a whisper. Jess reached over me and undid the chains as they dropped to the floor. I felt the instant relief around my wrists. Liberty, we need to get you ready for your initiation, she said. She reached out to me to help me from the mattress I laid on. Initiation, I whispered. If you want to be free of this room, then you must join the pack, she said simply. If she was disgusted by the way I had been treated, she didn't show it. In fact, apart from her sincerity of kindness, there wasn't much to read of her. I clearly looked confused as the other Omegas started to laugh. Come on, girl, a nice bath and clean clothes will freshen you up, said a beautiful blonde Omega. I didn't know these ladies, but their kindness and warmth in their words soothed my already terrified soul. What if I don't want to be part of your pack? I asked. The room went silent, and the ladies all stared at Jess, waiting for her to lead the conversation. Come with me, Liberty. Others go away. I will look after Liberty myself, she said, as she waved the others away. The disappointment was felt all around me. But before I could think about it, Jess grabbed my arm and led me from the room down a corridor. I tried to take a peek out of the windows, but Jess pulled me too fast, and I was almost running to keep up with her. Draco's pack isn't the same as it used to be, Liberty. Times had changed, it had too. Jess spoke with such urgency. She stopped at a door at the end of the corridor and turned the knob. You will find that the old Alpha was, well, brutal. His methods were frowned upon, not just by the pack but by his loved ones too, she said as she pushed the door open. The room she led me to was beautiful. It had a queen-size bed, and everything was laced in reds and golds. The sun streamed in through massive windows that lit every corner of the room. She sat on the bed and patted beside her. You know the new Alpha? She asked. I shook my head. No, but I have heard rumors that he is as cold and merciless as the last one, I answered. Jess laughed. Well, if that was true, you would not have refuge here, would you? She said. I sat next to her and dropped my gaze to the floor. Not much refuge if I have been chained to a wall for days, with only a cold mute of a man coming and watching me, is it? I whispered. Jess shook her head, and a smile appeared on her face. Maybe not Liberty, but you are alive. You have been fed and your sheets have been changed, even if it was by how you describe him. She laughed. Oh yes, a cold mute of a man, she said, clapping her hands together. The bathroom is in there. There are clothes in the wardrobe, just help yourself. Jess said as she threw herself onto the bed. I sat here free to leave if I wanted or go into the bathroom and wash. I mean, where could I go? Alpha Jenkins was out to ending the legacy. Me and my father and friends were no more. The sense of emptiness engulfed me as I stood and walked to the bathroom. I'm just here, Liberty, if you need anything, she said with a wink. As I laid in the bath, I could hear bickering in the other room. Cold mute. I'll show her. This man's voice boomed. My cheeks crimsoned as I was aware. Jess was talking to the man that entered my room for the last few days. What are you going to do exactly? Storm is there and demands she change her opinion. Don't be stupid, just go about your day and leave her with me, Jess boomed back. Her aura was not the normal aura. It made me question who she actually was. As I got out of the bath, I assumed the silence in the other room meant that the man had gone and the fighting had stopped. So I thought nothing of wrapping my body in a towel and walking back into the bedroom for Jess and the man to stop whispering and stare at me. I froze where I stood, not expecting to see him. His presence wafting in my nostrils, and an unfamiliar purr sounded from Carissa as I could feel the heat in my cheeks, so I glanced away. The man was so cold-faced as to not even respecting my personal space. He stood from the bed and walked directly to me. Remember, we are keeping you alive, he said as he leaned in close, his shadow enveloping me. I tried to step back, but his grip tightened and I grimaced in pain. Stop it, Jess demanded. She walked around the bed and pushed down on his hand, gripping my face. Can't you see you hurt her? She boomed. Not even a flicker of emotion crossed his face. He glanced at Jess, and then back to me, and without saying anything more he turned and walked out the room. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding out. Thank you, I whispered. She shook her head and checked my face. I think you should know something, she said as she bit her bottom lip, wrestling with her inner conflict. What? I asked. Get dressed first, and I will tell you on the way to meet the Alpha, she said, quickly rushing to the wardrobe and opening the doors, uncertain of what she wanted to tell me, but held back from pushing her. Further, I went to find an outfit. After I had chosen a flowery dress and tied my hair back, I was ready. I didn't know who this Alpha was, but I had to push the hurt I felt inside to one side and acknowledge him as my alpha. I didn't know if I could do this. Is it normal? I asked as I finished braiding my hair. Is that normal? Jess asked. Normal to lock a woman away and then initiate them? I asked. The sympathy passed through her that I saw her reflection in the mirror before she replied. Liberty, your situation isn't normal. How you would react was unknown. We all knew who you were and what happened to you. We know about your mother, so we needed you to calm down for a few days before we welcomed you into the pack, she said confidently. But also I felt as if she was hiding something from me. A pang overwhelmed my heart at the mention of my mother. But I cried so much in the last few days that I didn't think I had any more tears left. How could the new alpha welcome me? I just don't get it. I don't think I will help his pack. I may even bring a damage. Doesn't he know this? I said, but it was a real worry to be honest, as I had nowhere to go. Even if I was shackled to a wall forever, I still would die if I left. Jess shook her head and smiled. I am sure the alpha will welcome you. You are special, Liberty. You just don't realize it now, she said as she rubbed my shoulders. I didn't know why she was so sure anyway, whether this new alpha indeed welcomes me join the pack or not. And no matter how different he was from the old alpha, the fact that his father ending the legacied my mother already makes him my enemy. As we walked down the grand stairs to the room, I could only assume I was entering for initiation. Jess stopped me and said, Liberty. When I turned to reply to her, a different man greeted us at the staircase. Jess, he bowed as he looked at me. I thought that was strange as I didn't know him, and as I went step forward, Jess leant over and whispered in my ear. Good luck. The man led me to the room and opened the door. Just wait in there. The alpha will be right with you. I walked into the dark room and sat in the chair that faced a large oak desk. The blinds were shut, but I could see bookshelf after bookshelf line the walls, as if there weren't any walls at all, and it was all just books. I can't help but want to know more about the new alpha. After all, you have to know your enemy before you can put an end to him. The door creaked open, and my head spun around, but I rolled my eyes as I saw the cold man that had entered my room for days not saying a word. Do you know who I am? The man said as his eyes glimmered. Does that mean anything to me? I don't think you are someone I have to know. I just replied rudely. I mean, I would have a nice attitude if it is Jess who talked to me. I would have responded to anyone else better if they were not this man. He closed the door behind him and walked to the chair behind the desk. I couldn't help thinking how disrespectful that is, sitting in the alpha chair. I am Alpha Jake Dracos, he simply said. His stare burrowed down into my soul, and I refused to believe that the cold man that entered my room for days on end, watching me eat, was in fact the alpha. I felt a mixture of fear and anger. The enemy had already appeared before me. He should pay for his father's mistakes. Don't try to do anything stupid after all. I've saved you now, he warned as if he had read my mind. As he stood and walked towards me, the uneasiness crept over me. I had to hide my hatred. I didn't want to seem ungrateful, but this pack wasn't known for their warmth and kindness. I heard Jenkins has a bounty on you, so initiating you into the pack is to mask you from him. Right now your stench is rogue, he said with such venom. I couldn't help but flinch away. You have to want to join though, Liberty. It isn't something I can force you with, he said as he stood in front of me, his hand cupping my face and tilting it up to look him straight in the eye. The interaction felt so intimate. I could feel sparks where his hands touched, and that shocked me. No, I will never join your pack. Your sins are too numerous to mention. I hate all of you. You are the devil. I swept his hand away and looked him firmly in the eye. He didn't expect this from me. His aura was so powerful that it seemed the air froze around him, and I found it hard to breathe. Suddenly, he clasped his hand to my chin with a firm hold, and I could feel the pain coming from my cheek. Do you think you are still Beta's daughter? You still think everyone wants to spoil you and love you, huh? You are nothing but a wanted rogue now. You are worthless. You are nothing. Look at your situation, Liberty. You can refuse my offer, you can just walk back and then die there. But what about your father and grandmother? You have no power or strength to save any of them. Your father will be laughed at by your pack for the rest of his life. For having such a stupid daughter like you. My tears rolled down silently. The cold floor sent chills throughout my body. He is right. I could do nothing for my father and grandmother. I struggled inwardly. Was I really going to surrender to this evil pack and this cold guy? I didn't want this happen. But did I have another choice right now? I nodded without saying a word, hoping to escape this room quicker. His cold exterior had made me feel suffocated, or maybe that was the aura that emanated from him. It blew through me, and the shivers and sparks filled me. I saw a flicker of emotion graze his face, but it left so quickly that I couldn't tell what it was. Could he feel uncomfortable too? No, that was ridiculous. He was the alpha, and from what I heard in my pack, he cared for nothing and none. With a sudden movement, he had pulled me from the chair. You need to want this, he said calmly. I bared my canines and sunk them into his arm, sucking his essence into my mouth. I could only hold the bile down that rose in my stomach. I stepped back and bared my arm to him. He stepped into me, shivers run up my spine as the sparks flashed through me. He ran his canines down my arm, and the sensation sent goosebumps over my body. My body shuddered from his touch, and I could feel my inner turmoil from his touch. My cheeks going crimson from his closeness that the groan escaped my mouth, our eyes locked, and I could feel the undeniable pull of the bond. In a swift motion, he marked the air around us with his presence, claiming the territory with alpha authority. A new roadmap of people filled my brain, and the sensation was so much that I could feel the darkness come, and my legs feel weak as they crumbled beneath me. But I didn't fall. Knowing I had to say my words, and he held me close, I called out, Alpha Jake Dracos, I belong to you and your pack. I saw his satisfaction, and he finally let me go. I was not expecting such emotion and clarity that swirled around in my body that crashed into me like a wave. I couldn't even tell how I managed to get from that room to a bed after the initiation, but I did. I joined the pack that ending the legacied my mother. Why is fate so cruel to me? I woke up still feeling the dull ache in my head in a room. I did not recognize, and unlike the room I had been in, this room had everything that a bedroom should have. There were no bars on the window. The door was open, and I was free to leave. The pounding in my head meant I couldn't, but still it was progress from the damp mattress on the floor. She is awake, Jess called as she entered the room. I rubbed my head, feeling the pound from every word she said, and pulled the cover over me. I heard her laugh as she walked over to me. Lib, you have been asleep for 2 days. You must wake now, she said calmly. I scrunched my face. How I had slept for 2 days. I sat up abruptly, checking my arm, but it had already healed and only a small mark of the Dracos pack remained. Carissa's snores echoed through my mind, and I frowned at her sleeping. It takes time. It impacted you more than it would normally, she said with a smile. Why? I asked with curiosity. She only smiled and winked, and she said, only time will tell if you truly wanted to be part of the pack. They had taken that I had reservations of joining the pack was the reason why I took so long to heal from it. I nodded with acceptance of her reasoning, and then I asked Jess, where do I live now? Jess stumbled her hands together and smiled. This is the pack house, Liberty. You've been placed here for safety. This will be your room, but now you are part of the pack. You are free to come and go when you want, she said. The pack house. Won't Luna mind that? I asked hesitantly. Jess frowned and said, there is no Luna, as the alpha didn't find his mate in our pack. A sense of excitement crept over me. I don't understand why I felt a little happy to hear this. He was such a cold, arrogant man, there was no way that I could fancy him. Jess walked to the cupboards and pulled the doors open. "Get dressed, we are going to meet the pack," she said as she walked from the room. It wasn't long before we were up and out of the pack house, and I wondered why Jess was so nice to me. I could still feel the dull pounding in my head, but Jess said that it will take time to calm down. She showed me around the village, meeting everyone and introducing me as if she had known me for years. I couldn't help but sense that she was hiding something from me. She showed me the areas I could go and the borderlines I couldn't. Carissa had woken from her slumber eager to shift and feel the wind through her fur. But Jess had told us not to until I was completely fit and ready. I could hear Carissa whimper as she yearned for the grass on her feet. As we walked to the pack house, I could feel eyes on me. And I looked up, I could see a figure in the window staring at us intently. "Don't worry about him," Jess said, looping her arm around mine. "Who are you, Jess?" I asked. I saw the hesitation on her face and her grip on my arm tighten. "Promise you won't freak," she said. I could sense her concern. Her hesitation was enough to send doubts to my mind that all wasn't as it seemed. "Why would I freak?" I asked. Our walking stopped abruptly. The smile faded, and she turned to look at me. "I was going to wait," she said. She shifted uneasily, and the confidence she had was gone, and I felt a pang of guilt surge inside of me. "Did I ask something bad?" I questioned. "No, not at all," she answered quickly. "Then what is it?" I said, rubbing her arm that looped mine. I had grown fond of Jess in our 2 encounters. She had been nothing but warm and welcoming to me. "I am just hesitant, because I know your history with our pack," she said. She suddenly seemed so much younger than me, shifting uncomfortably, not quite making eye contact, and then the realization overwhelmed me. "Are you the Luna?" I was shocked that I had been so familiar with her. She shook her head straight away and denied what I believed was the truth. "No," I said, "the Alpha has not found our mate in our pack. He is, however," she said, pausing. Suddenly, I wanted to step away from her, but her grip kept me in place. "I am the Alpha's sister," she said barely audibly. The shock overwhelmed me. This woman in front of me is a Dracos by essence. She was part of the problem. All Dracos are cold and merciless. They are not warm and kind like Jess. I shook my head and pulled my arm from her grip. "No, you're kind and warm, not a Dracos," I said. She tried to grab my hand. "Please, Liberty, let me explain," she pleaded. Tears stung my eyes as I tried to maintain calmness, but betrayal filled me, and I couldn't be near a Dracos. I stepped away from her. There were only 2 places to go, back to my room or run. I knew it was pointless running. I had nowhere to go. So I walked away from Jess, leaving her standing there alone, and marched across the gravel to the pack house as the tears started to flow freely, and the pain bound by fate my heart as the memories of my mother flooded my mind. "Jake." I watched her hold back her tears as she charged towards the pack house. I felt anger pulsate at her pain. She was annoying and an inconvenience that could bring war to my pack, but I still took her in. When Harris called me with such urgency for refuge, I knew I needed to pay back the Dracos pack debt to him. I clenched my fist as the anger surged through me, gripping my soul. Why was I so angry? This woman meant nothing to me. To be honest, if she ran, would I even care? I questioned. Jess walked towards me. "Jake, I'm sorry," she whimpered. I shook my head, not being able to speak to her. "Jake, she knows I'm a Dracos," she said as the tears started to fall. I turned my back to her. This wretched woman wasn't meant to know Jess's connection yet. We both spoke about it, that she needed a friend, as annoying as this girl was. She was special. We didn't know how, but when Harris brought her here unconscious, we both saw her aura. We both felt her wolf. We knew that it was written in the stars that she was sent to us, and we had to protect her even if we didn't want to, but we both knew since the war that her life was destroyed. But she didn't know the reason. She thought it was because her mother died, but if she knew the truth that the Draco's pack had held secret for years, then would that really set her free? Would it be that she would accept the pack fully and stay? What was I saying? Why did I want her to stay? This woman was unbearable. Jake, talk to me, Jess pleaded, touching my shoulder. My growl rumbled in my chest at her touch. Fix it, I snapped. Maybe she would listen to you, Jess suggested. My wolf Zeus pushed forward, but I pushed him back. I could feel his itch beneath my skin. The anger at Jess had to be contained. When my wolf emerged, I knew I would not control his actions. He had changed when this girl arrived. His agitation as he paced my mind was unbearable. The need to shift grew so much right now, but I was scared of what he might do, so I held him back. I have to go, I snapped, knowing that I needed to get away from all this and run through the forest. Maybe that would settle Zeus. A knock at the door startled Jess and we both looked at the door as it opened. It was my trusted beta Milo. He didn't even wait for us to answer. He stormed in so that I felt the urgency in his words. Alpha, the girl is gone, Milo said. Panic blew through me like a gust of wind. What do you mean? I snapped. It wasn't Milo's fault, but I couldn't contain my anger as I grabbed his throat. What do you mean? I growled. Alpha, please, Milo pleaded, gasping for air. Do you know when Milo? Jess spoke as she held my arm trying to loosen the grip. Jake, she screamed. It was enough for me to come to my senses and shake my head, releasing my grip on Milo. I searched my mind for a link with Liberty, but she had blocked me out, and I growled. She will pay for this disobedience. She will pay for blocking me out. I slammed my fist down hard on the table, and it smashed into two. Please, Jake, calm down, Jess screamed at me. I opened the mind link to the border patrols, asking them to search for Liberty. And let me know, all in chorus they had said. Yes, Alpha, come, I ordered Milo. We left Jess in the room alone, as we left the pack house shifting as our feet touched the gravel. We ran through the trees sniffing the air for her presence. We called for her, pushing the mind link to open, but she blocked me out, which angered me more. My growls rumbled inside me the more she pushed me away, the more she disobeyed me. I suddenly caught her presence. She was close. I didn't realize that I had picked up speed. I didn't know that my once-pounding heart had slowed down the closer I got to her. The calmness that engulfed me was unsettling the closer I got to her. I passed through trees and saw the lake before me, and there she was sitting on a rock, opposite, looking at her reflection in the water as the tears fell from her eyes. A pang of emotion overwhelmed me, but I didn't recognize what it was, and for a moment I wanted to stay hidden and watch her. I mind-linked my pack, and I told them to stop the search, and I stepped back into the trees hidden from view. As I watched her from afar, the moonlight overwhelmed her face, illuminating her sadness. She didn't look disgusting this way. In fact, the moonlight highlighted the features of her small body, making her look adorable. I couldn't take my eyes from her as I shifted back into my human form, pulling a bag from the tree and throwing on the clothes that were inside. Mom, I'm sorry, she cried. I furrowed my brows and wondered why she was sorry, her voice so soft and sounded so pained. She had secrets herself. She wasn't sorry because she was in our pack. She wasn't sorry because she missed her. She was sorry that she had done something. She must have only been 13 when the war happened. What would a 13-year-old be capable of? I wondered so many things, but I knew she wouldn't tell me. I felt I was invading her at that moment. I suddenly felt I was violating her from a distance. I know you are there, she shouted out. I walked from between the trees and stared at her. Alpha, she spoke. Liberty, I said. I saw her shudder as I said her name. I frowned at her response to me. You shut me out, I hissed. The mixed emotions swirled inside me. This woman was really unbearable. Her effect on me was like being possessed, as if I had become another person. Alpha, I just needed some time, she spoke. Why did it bother me that she called me Alpha? That is who I am to her. You are in danger, and you came out here alone, not telling anyone where you were going. Do you understand the dangers you put our pack in? I snapped. She wiped her face and nodded. I am sorry, Alpha, forgive me, she said. I could tell that her words were no more than words, and that she meant no sincerity in them. And it angered me. Anger again surged through me like electricity, and I lunged forward, startling her. And she moved swiftly from the rock that she sat on, as she gasped at my claws that grew just grazing her skin as she moved from my clutches. I could feel her pain through the pack link. I shuddered at the pain I caused her because I felt it too. Milo stepped through the trees. Alpha, he spoke, slicing the already toxic air around us. I backed away from Liberty, and I saw nothing but fear etched on her face. Take her back, I ordered. Milo nodded and grabbed Liberty, who was now shaking with fear, and pulled her away from me. Come on, let's go, Milo said to her. The look of fear will forever be etched in my soul. I turned and ran as fast as I could, shifting as I went, the anger at what I did surging through me. I see a movement in the corner of my eye, and I stop abruptly. I know you are there, I growl. There was a moment of hesitation as a little woman steps from the tree. She bows. Alpha, she said. Which? I hissed through gritted teeth. Now, Jake, that really isn't any way of speaking to me, is it? She snapped back. This woman was annoying. Remember your place. I snapped. Is she here? She asked, ignoring my anger and my hostility. I was hesitant, and I nodded. Just as you saw it, I said. Shift back, Alpha. We have much to talk about, she said, throwing me some clothes. She turned back into the trees and walked away. I knew she was going to her house that sat far away from the pack. I shifted and changed, and as I sighed, I followed the path the woman took. She was right, so much was about to happen that I couldn't take my pack into the unknown. I couldn't protect this annoying, unpredictable girl. This girl that I found infatuating, but an inconvenience at the same time. This girl didn't know how special she was to our pack, to our future.